A pleasant good day to all of you. My name is Errol Forde. I'm a certified Montessori dementia professional, also a certified dementia practitioner, and an activities director certified. Today, basically, I just want to introduce to you dementia and some forms of dementia and how it's impacting our communities, our states, our homes, and globally speaking. So first, what is dementia? Dementia is a deterioration of the frontal lobe of the brain. It is associated with an accumulation of various symptoms that affects the brain progressively and negatively. Now, there are various types of dementia from Parkinson's, the Lewy body, Huntington, Alzheimer's, in which, by the way, Alzheimer's are responsible for 60 to 80% of deaths in dementia. Now, in 2020, we had approximately 135,000 people in Massachusetts suffering with dementia. It's expected that by the year 2025, that is now upon us, we would reach a capacity of 150,000. Now, here in America alone, we have over 7 million Americans suffering from dementia. Globally speaking, statistics from the World Health Organization have made it absolutely clear that we have more than 55 million people with dementia around the world. Dementia is progressively becoming a pandemic. It's ravaging homes, it's destroying lives, it's destroying families, and we have to better prepare ourselves to deal with what is ahead of us. And by doing so, we must be in a position to have an idea when some loved one in our families are suffering with this disease, or rather, with this pandemic called dementia. We are getting there. It's increasing rapidly. How do we identify some of the symptoms when our loved ones, especially those who live in our households, who may very well be over the age of 50 years of age? Now, remember that dementia doesn't have any specific age, but most of the times it affects people around in their 50s and upward. It's also linked to hereditarily and genetically from families, from one generation down to the other. Sometimes it is proven that it can affect family members through a generational lineage. How do we best see and look for those symptoms? And yes, you may have a loved one, an older person in your home, but you're so busy working, you're so busy about your daily livelihood that you just can't take the time out to recognize that something wrong is going on with your family member, that something wrong is going on with your loved one. And this happened because of our busyness and the distractions of life. And sometimes it's very hard to identify it because it's natural that your family and people around you forget things. It's a natural part of our day-to-day living to forget things. But we can't afford to ignore the fact that it's not just about forgetting things. Your behavior pattern changes, and it changes progressively but drastically. The way you conduct yourself, the way you operate, is not the same person that you normally be or that you normally know as a person growing up with or in the house with. So what are just some of those symptoms? Those symptoms is when a person come and say to you something that they would have just mentioned to you 1 minute ago and mention it all over again, maybe 2 or 3 times, in the course of a minute or a couple minutes. That raises a red flag. If the person can't remember they just ate their breakfast and asked for it again, that also raises a red flag. If the person forgot to brush their teeth, when that was the first thing they normally used to do when they wake from bed, or sleeping rather, that's another red flag. If they can't remember they ate their lunch or had supper or breakfast, these things raise red flags. Not being able to bathe when they're accustomed bathing themselves and want to find out, have they been to the shower before? That also raises a red flag. Certain things that are abnormal, that are not necessarily be a part of their upbringing or growing up with you in the household, raise red flags to give you an indication something is wrong. With that being said, is then to pursue the counsel of a medical practitioner that they can make the right type of an assessment that you can now come up with decisions. Now, it's hard to really put your loved one away because they have a disease, but here's the big reality. The world doesn't operate that way. You have your life to carry on with. You may have children to support. You may have commitments in life, be it a mortgage or a car note or something you have to deal with, your household and utilities to deal with, whatever. It simply means you have to go to work. You may not be in a position financially to have a caretaker come into your home to look after that person. Now, that brings on economic stress on you. That brings on emotional and psychological stress on you as well. You are now faced with a problem. What do I do with my mom or my dad or my uncle or grandpa? Something like that. You now have to come up with a decision that will affect you for the balance of your life, one way or the other. Do I admit that person to a skilled nursing facility? How am I going to pay that bill? Do I get Medicaid and Medicare pay for this bill? And often that is the case. Most nursing homes are subsidized by Medicare and Medicaid, especially skilled nursing facilities. That is the dimension that you have to seek in order to get the kind of assistance that you necessarily need to take care of your loved one. But it just doesn't stay there, because when you all sum it up, this is a person that you live with. This is a person that nourishes you. This is a person that look out for your well-being. They probably sent you to school. They probably do everything for you as a child, and it brings on psychological complications too, to see that you have to place your loved one in a nursing facility. Now, dementia is not an easy sickness or illness to deal with. It's progressive. It just works on you the victim, so to speak, on a daily basis. 1 minute you can be cognitive and the other minute you may not. And even to have that person in your home and not in a nursing facility, a skilled nursing facility, it put the burden on you to try to even keep up with that person you're dealing with. There are quick mood changes. There are severe mood changes. 1 minute they could be nice and smiling, and then the next minute they may be someone totally different that you don't know anymore. And you have to cope with that. But it's a burden, even emotionally and psychologically, coping with that. We are in a position where you don't want to send off your loved one to a nursing home, but you have to. You are left with no choice, or you don't have a choice anymore. This is something you have to do for the safety of yourself, the safety of your loved one, and for a peace of mind. It may sound difficult, it may sound complicated. So what are some of the difficulties with a dementia victim struggles with? Now, it's hard to use the word struggle with dementia victims or dementia patients or residents, whichever word you choose to call them, because it's not that their mind is there anymore. The frontal lobe of the brain is continuously being deteriorated. With that said, the ability to be cognitively active like you were before is no longer a part of your body. It progressively, day after day, go from one stage to the next. And some people, it is expedited, where it just speeds up at a fast rate. And then in some other people, it simply don't. There are those who live with dementia that still maintain a good level of cognitive awareness. Then there are some that are in between, and there are some that simply don't have it. But one thing for sure is that they are struggling with themselves with whatever little bit of cognitive ability they have. They're not going to be the same person because the brain is no longer the same. The way to perceive and understand things are different to how you and I will perceive things. They are trying to fight to understand who they are with a lapidated mind, so to speak. When that starts to happen, something that loved person you know just go animalistic. They're trying to accept who they are, but they can't find to grab a hold of what's going on. They are in a new home now. It's not the old home that they grew up in and that they know for all these years. They are in a different total environment, and even to gravitate and hold on to that new environment is hard. With what little memory they have, they're no longer seeing their loved ones, but they're seeing total strangers like themselves in a new facility, a new home, so to speak. But they can't deal with it. And sometimes even the CNAs that do their best and work earnestly hard, they don't get acknowledged because that's not who they used to know. And this is the issue with dementia patients. The short-term memory leaves them. Their long-term memory survives for a very long time. And that's the problem. So seeing new CNAs and new people in their lives that they're not accustomed seeing doesn't register in their mind. They don't look correct in their mind. They are not appreciated. They are not embraced the way you would like them to embrace as a normal person do. But the long-term memory of their loved one is still in their brain. They're not seeing that person that they grew up with, that is registered in their long-term memory. That part is gone. The strange home that they're now in is not registering. They can't understand it because their short-term memory to understand and appreciate things in the present is no longer there. So you have a resident or a patient living in a long time era opposed to the present time. So even the CNAs and activity assistants and directors and so forth who come into daily face-to-face interaction with these residents have to understand that they're now in a new world. They must see things the way they see it. They must understand things that the way the dementia person is understanding it. In other words, you have to be in their world. You have to let them feel appreciated in their world. You have to work with them in their world. You have to comfort them in their world. Even to do their active daily livings, ADLs, you have to work with them in their world. You have to be circumspective when you're dealing with dementia residents or patients. They are different like none other. They are not who you used to know. They are not the average patient that would come to you. That called for a level of understanding and, more importantly, integrity. You have to be sensitive to their needs. You must understand their needs. You've got to be patient with them. You must be their soulmate. Even if it's for 1 minute, you must be their soulmate. In other words, you have to give them you for that minute. Whenever you are working with them, you must give them the total you. You have to lend them your hands. You have to lend them your brain. You have to lend them your speech, your voice. You have to be their mouthpiece. You have to be their ears. You have to be their eyesight. You have to be their smiling partner. You have to be circumspective. You have to be sensitive to their needs. But more importantly, we must bear in mind that these can change within a second. At any given time, you have to always be prepared. Remember, these people are ordinary people just like you and I, just that their brain is failing them. And where their brain fails them, you have to be their brain. You have to be their navigating compass to life. You're the one who have to give them assurance. Give them something to grab onto. You have to give them hope. So in the long run, for whatever remaining of their life they have, you have to be circumspective and do your due diligence at all times to make sure that they feel welcome, appreciated, and loved. It's more than just working for the dollar. It's about extending love. It's about extending harmony, making them feel appreciated. Don't patronize them. Don't be patriotic to them. Just be yourself, be normal, but show love, embrace them. That's all they're asking for. And they understand. It's a spiritual connection. It has to be a psychological connection. It has to be an emotional connection. It has to be a love connection. It has to be honesty. It has to be purity. When you deal with dementia patients, be their hand, be their feet, be their tongue, be their eyes, be their ears, be their brain. You must fill in that void spot and let them live out their life comfortable and happy. With that said, I just want to leave this in the end. You at home who may have a dementia patient or a loved one who may very well be at the end of their life. Yes, it's hard to see your loved ones go into nursing facilities. Everyone have their opinions about nursing facilities, but I can tell you this. There are some, I'm telling this from experience, there are some of the best places you can always take your dementia patient to. Because there are those in the medical practitioners field that are designed and equipped to give them the critical attention that they need. Whether it's through a great care plan that is done through a comprehensive assessment or whatever the case may be, it's vitally important that you choose the right nursing facility. Make sure you pay your loved ones regular visits, that they can feel comfortable as possible. Well, I will continue with part 2 of this program in the near future, and we will look at living in the dementia world. We will look at care plans. We also will look at activities, therapeutic. We will take all that into consideration and prepare for a second program of living in the dementia world and taking good care of dementia residents. Until then, you have a great day. Thank you all.